Well, welcome back, guys. This is David Powers from Ionia Health Tech Inc., and we have Dr. Pat Ballong back on, and we want to talk about chiropractor practice and what kind of exercises you can release your stress from your body. So we're always hunched over, looking at this thing.
This thing.
Yes, or
you
whatever
know,
whatever
eh,
screen or desk, or we're very much more static than we are dynamic these days. We are more
well,
of a um, sitting society versus a running and standing and walking society anymore. So, what is going on with you, Dr. Pat?
it's funny. I just had a brand new patient yesterday, and one of the things he says is that he sits too much, and he realizes that he sits too much, but he hasn't done anything about not sitting.
Mm.
And I said, so what are you going to do about it? And he said, wow. He goes, I guess I'm going to try to move. And I said, try to lift your arm. And he raised his arm. And I said, no, you raised your arm. You didn't try to raise your arm. You did raise your arm. There's a difference between
Right.
trying to raise your arm and I said, and raising your arm. And so, he just said, but and he didn't get it. He's like, yeah, but I raised my arm. And I said, that's because you raised it. You didn't try to. Trying would indicate that you weren't successful. And he's going,
Ah,
oh, oh,
it's
and so,
amazing what kind of language we use in our day to day life, and we always put down what we can't do, just like you
right.
said.
Right. And people communicate very poorly, and generally speaking. And so it's just like they're, especially when it like depends upon how they were raised but a lot of people gaslight, because instead of saying what the situation is, they take it off into an nth degree. So that's something that I see, and anytime I'm interviewing a patient, for being a new patient, because I choose my patients. I don't take on everybody, and I have to be able to discertain, what, who works with us the best, right?
Hmm. Right.
And so, and because if you can't help somebody, you can't keep them. You can't, I don't take those people on as patients,
Gotcha.
and so they have to be able to listen, they have to be able to respond. Um, and, there's a lot of dimension to it that people, that when I was a first time doctor, right? And it's just like, I would do, I would bend over backwards to keep people as patients. But I realized that I was not doing them any service. I wasn't doing a good service to them if they weren't a fit for the office. Because then you get burnt out, and it's just like you don't ever want a burnt out doctor working on you.
Right. And as a doctor, you work what, 12 to 14-hour shifts anyway, unless you run your own
Medical
business.
doctors do maybe, but it's just like, I'm up early, so when I go in on like tomorrow and on the following day, I'll be in there I get there at around quarter to 9 and I leave at like 6:30.
Gotcha.
So like that's a good 9 hours, but I'm dealing, it's different. Like in medical practice, you just have like 25 people maybe in a day or something like that. In a chiropractic practice, because you're performing a service, you're going to see more patients per hour, than you would in
Really?
a
Okay.
medical. Yeah. So it says no, because you're adjusting them. You're talking
Gotcha.
and working on it at the same time. So you can see like 4, 6 patients in an hour, depending upon what the situation is, of course. And so because you want to give them a good service, but you also need to be able to, you know, meet, the requirements things that your bills that you have to pay, so
Correct.
there's, and then, and it's a faster service than like in medicine. They have to sit there and go, okay, David, what's wrong with you? And then you're telling
Right.
the doctor what's wrong with you, and then And it's like by the time you get out of there, you're self-diagnosing yourself. And he's treating you for that. It's just like, so I'm looking at structure function, and I'm looking at alignment, and I'm looking at, does this feel better? Can you move your head better? Can you raise your shoulder better? I'm looking for structure and function and to be able to support that.
Wow. So, what are your patients doing these days as far as exercises go? What kind of
Well,
stretches are
it
you working
depends.
on?
I like to keep it simple because I don't have the capacity right now to go into like a full exercise program. So when I am helping someone do things like bend their head back,
Okay,
it's just like roll your shoulders back 5 times a day, something simple, you know,
gotcha.
put your head back and just let it be there, for a
I
couple
know there's
minutes.
all kind of nerves in your spine and your neck. Can you
Oh, for sure.
describe what's
Your
going on
body,
there?
your whole body's nerves. If we melted
Right,
everything else away, you could tell your size and your shape, except for your hair.
right.
But you could tell the size and the shape of someone's body just by, because every cell, every organ, every tissue has nervous input from the brain. And the brain
Gotcha.
communicates to the body down the spinal cord. From the spinal cord, it goes out to every cell, every bone, every tissue. So you can see where like your upper part of your back can affect things like your breathing because that's respiratory, like right in there. The
Hmm.
brachial plexus comes from the middle part of the neck and it comes down to the top part of your, top part of the dorsal area. This is the dorsal area back here, and it blends in to make the brachial plexus that goes down to the arm and goes to the fingers.
Gotcha.
And there's a nerve that's in the neck. You could see kind of like my arm lifting up in the back. Well, that muscle is called the latissimus dorsi and is innervated from the long thoracic nerve. And the long thoracic nerve comes from a branch from C5, which
Wow.
is in the middle part of the neck. You're thinking, like, what does that have to do with that? It's just like, but it's all interconnected and then there's a rhyme and reason for it all.
It's kind of like acupuncture, if I remember correctly. They have all kinds of different points for
Yeah.
different areas, but
Hmm.
some part points for eyes are in the leg. Some points for the heart and liver all can be in your ear or hands.
Well, there's a lot of acupuncture points. I'm an acupuncture physician also, so there's a lot of acupuncture points in the ear. And actually, although you can't see it, I'll put this mic here. Your head is down here on your ear, and then it goes around like so, and your feet would be around here. And then the inside of your ear are your major organs that are in the body.
Wow.
And those are like the points, but people have practices that just do auricular, acupuncture, and then you have other types of, there's different techniques um, in acupuncture also, just like there are in techniques in chiropractic.
So I guess like a podiatrist for the foot can actually the he can actually manipulate the organs through the foot, bottom of the foot. Is there or,
you're talking about reflexology, right?
yes.
So someone who's a reflexologist, I wouldn't say a podiatrist does that. They're much more oriented towards like cutting, doing bunion, and plantar fasciitis, things like that. Um, but someone who does like like reflexology is going to like your whole foot and even your hand relate to the components of your whole body
Wow.
and that. So there's and if you look at if we had just a simple, if anyone takes time to just to look at a chart, you're going like, wow, it's just like where the lungs are, where the spine's at, um, along your foot and that type of thing.
So what are you doing to stay limber up where you are? I know you're
I walk.
babysitting.
I
Gotcha.
sleep well. I'm on my feet a lot. I move. My second patient ever, which we finally called Grandma, you know, um, I asked her what she did for exercise. She's from Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I went to
Okay.
school for chiropractic, and she 92 years old. She comes in because she has like an Afghan that she wants to make for the new one that's coming. And so, um, and I asked her to get to the point and I said, what do you do for exercise? And so she said, um, well, I take my Dixie cup with this like beautiful Southern accent. I take my Dixie cup and I go outside and I water my plants. And I'm thinking, I said, do you not walk around the block? She goes, oh no. She goes, the area is turning. So I decided to just take my Dixie cup and go outside and water my plants. And I said, in the backyard. And I go, well, how many plants do you have? And she proudly sits up and she said, 150. And I said, well, you certainly get a lot of exercise. She goes, I do that every day, and she made it a point to do that. And then one of her great comments that I've used like for like 38 years now is that, or longer, she used to say, if you don't move, you're going to die.
Mm.
And even about a year and a half ago, I was in Massachusetts covering for a doctor, and that doctor in Massachusetts also, I was a brand new patient, and he was a kid. He was only like 17 years old. He couldn't bend farther enough. He couldn't take his hands down to touch his knees because he sits so
Mm.
much. So
Yeah,
he's losing
right.
that stability of that.
Well, that's the
It's crazy.
modern world that we live in. You sit down at a desk all day,
But I
or
don't sit
not
down. I
up and
walk.
running or up and standing.
I have a watch on, right? And today I'm taking it easy because um, I just want to. I have 2 long days ahead of me, But on here, and when I get done today, I'm leaving here to go do the rest of my walk. But I've got clocked on here close just under 2,000 steps. So
Wow.
5,000 steps is like 2 miles or 2.5 miles.
Gotcha.
And so it's just like, and someone goes like, well, if I'm short, my 5,000 steps are different than yours. And I said, there's still 5,000 steps. It's
That's
just,
true.
I mean, like when you count them, it's just counting steps. So if you take short steps, and he goes, yeah, but it won't be the same distance. I said, no, it won't. I said, but you'll still take in 5,000 steps. And the point is steps, not distance,
Mm. Well,
right?
that's interesting.
You know,
My grandma lived 100 to 102, and for many, many years she took public transportation into the city. She lived out in the outskirts of Philadelphia, and she would go into the city for work. She worked for many doctors' offices as a medical secretary back in the day,
mm-hmm.
and we didn't know how she survived or was stayed so fit. And it was probably her walking back and forth to work and
Mm-hmm.
carrying everything, and you know, um, uh, I actually miss going outside and walking. It's just way too hot out here. I have my air conditioner, so I'm lazy now. But I should go
Well,
out for a walk more often.
if you go out for a little bit of a walk, it's just like take water with you. When I used to go walk my dogs, and like when I lived in Florida, it was 93, 97 something. I just made sure I had their portable bowls and I had a water cooler thing with me, so I could stop and give them water along the way. And it's just that was part of my backpack that I would take for like walking my dogs and myself, and then I would drink water, they would drink water, and we were well hydrated.
Wow. It's the little
And
things in life that actually make us better, not the big things. I feel.
Well, too, it's just like when, we talked a little bit about sitting before. I always tell people, I said, like, when you go to get up, you want to turn your extensors on. A way to do that is just take all your pillows off behind you and don't point your head up and don't point it down. Just press your head back. You can do it even if you're sitting and pressing your head back and holding it for 10 seconds, and you can close your arms. I can't really do it because I got my headphones on, but you want to turn to the right and you want to do a left against resistance, and then you want to just press forward also. And so
Hmm.
It's just like that's really good for putting a little more tone in your neck. If you're sitting at a red light, press your head back against the thing. I realize how much, I really, it's so hard to do. But in a car, like having your head back to the headrest, like when you're driving, because that's like the right position technically. But we all find ourselves like this, and then I'll go like, oh my God, my head's not there, and then, but it takes practice. Practice makes permanent.
Wow. Yeah, Brett is driving cross country from Ohio to Nevada, so
Hmm.
that's why he is not here this week.
Ah,
Yeah.
I understand.
Um, but yeah, he takes a 3 mile walk every morning. So
3 mile walk every morning.
yeah, when he's
Good.
living in Ohio.
Uh-huh. Good for him.
And
The
yeah.
it's just like around here, there's no sidewalks where I'm
Mm,
at right now, and this is a cut down street. And I'm taking the dog that I'm babysitting right now down the street with me, but I've trained him to stop. And like when a car is coming and back off the street, and we'll stand there until the person like pulls around us, and then we'll continue walking down the street. I haven't done that much with him this time here. It's just I've had other projects to do, but every morning I walk out. There's a beautiful garden in this house, and the view, well, you can't see it now, but the kind of very hazy out today. Um,
gotcha.
but like, there's this beautiful garden where I'm at right now. So sometimes, you can, also I walk in and out with the dog a lot, during the day and walking around and such. Um, but
Do you recommend raised gardens for older people so they don't have to bend down as much?
um, that might be a good idea. I mean, it's just like I'm not a gardener, and
Gotcha.
it's just like I can grow herbs. You'd never want me to grow anything else. I mean, I can. That's my thing. It's just like my mother had a green thumb. I brought when I was in college. I had this wandering Jew plant, and it's probably no longer called that because it's probably not politically correct. But it's called a wandering Jew, and and it's very like viney and very small leaves and things like this. And that thing was like almost dead when I gave it to her. And I came back about 2 months after that, and I go, oh my God. I said, when did I get this? She goes, oh, you gave it to me. And I just looked at it and I just went like, that's the same plant. Because it was like literally maybe had like, 3 leaves on it left that were
Gotcha.
alive.
I
But,
had a spider plant, and
mhm,
I don't have a green thumb either, but um, I basically killed it, and my
mhm.
mom revived it. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, well, it's just like, it's just like I have a huge appreciation for them. There's tons of flowers. This woman that's gone, she goes, pick as many flowers as you want. I'd rather see them on themselves and that,
Okay.
so,
My grandmom used to have a row of roses, and my mom would always say, "How do you grow your roses so well?" I just let them grow, and she trimmed, everything when it needs to be trimmed, but she
hmm.
just let them grow just as usual, just naturally.
Well, well, roses you can actually cut and put in the ground upside down
Hmm.
because that's where all
Okay,
the seeds are at, and then put a bottle over it. And then they'll have a tendency to grow. They'll, like you put at one season. My aunt told me how to do that one time, and I just said to her, "Okay, thanks," because she's has done that too, and that it's like I've got a busy day today. Are you busy today?
hmm.
Are you? Uh,
So, what has happened in the past week since we met up last?
um,
Anything new?
Not anything new. I'm just, it's just like I've got projects that I'm working on. I did some
Okay,
license renewal, and I finished my qualifications for my acupuncture license in the state of Massachusetts in Florida, and submitted hours to that was from an accredited college,
gotcha.
and that kind of thing. And I did that kind of stuff, and I went to a celebration of life for a woman that's a patient of mine, her husband, and I said, like, when they were talking about him, I thought was interesting because everyone's like, I learned more about him from what people said about him. I looked at her and I said,
Hmm.
how many times did I actually see him? She said, just once. She goes, but the time he saw you, she goes, it was a miracle because he could barely walk. And she goes, and after you adjusted him, she said that he was able to walk really well.
Wow.
And that's it's crazy. And that I
What
just
kind of
want to.
herbs do you recommend for inflammation and whatnot? I heard turmeric is one. I'm
Well,
curious about.
some people are very sensitive to turmeric. I wouldn't take turmeric at all personally because I'm very sensitive to it and it makes me
Okay.
sick. I mean, like throw up sick. So the so like things like oregano, thyme, rosemary, basil. Basil's hot. Um, those kind of herbs you can like chop up and put in salads. They're easy to grow. Thyme's very, very easy to grow. It just needs enough water. Um, the and those are my go-to. When COVID was going around, I used to burn thyme and rosemary, and purification and thieves. Cinnamon, things that are hot.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot of good herbal books that are out there. I don't have it here. There's my herbal books at the off were in the office, but but those are things that you can eat and you can put in your foods, and that's why you put them in foods. Like people use ginger with sushi so that you don't get food poisoning, and it's also really great for someone who's pregnant because it calms the fetus
Hmm.
and that. So
I never knew that.
so it's a good herb. It's a good herb, and it's good for the stomach. It's good for upset stomach.
Would you like to give today?
What's my quote for today?
What's your quote for today?
Oh man, here you are putting me on the spot again.
Yup. I know you have a half an hour, so keep an eye on
Okay, I didn't think about a quote for today. Um, so I think that, and I really don't know if it's a quote. So um, I did a post in LinkedIn,
it. Okay.
and my post in LinkedIn, and I updated the piece of it, and I liked it, and I like it because of that. Let me just quickly find it.
Okay.
Um, oh, let's see. We can go here. We can go here. You're so patient. Um, the secret, here it is, and it even has a person who said it. So, the secret to making healthy eating and easy to maintain is habit. To
Mm.
maintain habit is balance. Let me read it again. The secret to making healthy eating and easy to maintain habit is balance. And it was
Okay.
by Nourish Nutrition. It's a company, and I'm not really clear who that is, but I like that post,
Okay.
and I like that image. So if anyone wants to really see it and take it all in, you know,
Oh,
um,
definitely.
it's just like and also, like Jane Kingsford says, balance is not something that you find, it's something that you create. So
Right.
that's
Because it's an
why,
action. So that's
right, right.
that seems right.
And healthy eating, I said also on the same post, is that healthy eating isn't about restriction, it's about rhythm, balance, and knowing what's best for you and what fuels you.
Mm. Because you feel lighter when you eat healthier.
You do. It's just like your clothes fit you better, you digest your foods, you sleep better, you think better, you move better. That's precious because that can take you to the next level.